Okay. Okay. So, hey, good morning, good evening. Welcome to the space. Wow. So it's our first call, and I'm really happy to be here. Happy New Year. And I hope you had a wonderful holidays. Just hide my captions. Maybe it might be interesting to invite a couple of voices, just anyone who would like to check in. It's a really big group, so it doesn't make sense for everyone to do so. Question could be, what does the new year feel like for you in relation to being in a global study journey such as this one? If any of you have maybe just some interesting feelings, thoughts that could represent the whole, maybe you can hear from three people.
I can start. My name is Jenny, and I live in Sweden. This is so exciting, and since a year ago, I started a new chapter of my life. Um, Being a businesswoman with a big family, and just um, working and doing things my whole life. I just changed to a being person, getting rid of everything that's not necessary. And I started inner dance half a year ago with a girl, Simona. And after that, my whole life has changed, and I'm looking for all the new knowledge about just to be happy. Uh, there's so many people around me that has everything they think, but they are still so empty. So my mission and the thing I would love to create from this is to get the opportunity to actually reach out to people, to get them to find themselves again, because to find the happiness. And I think that's the only way we can do with just, finding things like this, getting into the deep and experience, because words can't explain anything of this, but the experience can. So I hope I can get the knowledge and the words and myself to get the people to realize what I have done the last year. So thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Mm, beautiful. Okay, let's hear from two more people who would like to jump in. Thank you for being brave, Jenny.
I'd like to jump in.
Mm,
I feel like the end of this year has shown me how to handle things out of my control and how to let go of control. And that's something that I want to master more. And I feel like there's an energy of like resilience and freedom being awakened in all of us. Um, I feel like the word courage and community is also showing up a lot for me lately. So with inner dance, it showed me also like seeing floor. Um, it's helping me embody the parts of myself that I don't understand. And I feel like that's what inner dance is helping me expand my awareness into. So, yeah.
thank you. Maybe one more.
I can talk. Um, I'd like to keep it very short, but seeing so many people here from different parts of the world just makes me feel very connected to people and people from everywhere. So it's a great feeling sitting at home alone, but yet being connected to everyone's energy. So thank you for the space.
Yeah, that's really nice. Yeah. Yeah, it explains so much. In such few words, it actually says a lot, the fact that this is even possible. Okay, so my name is Pai. I'm here in Palawan right now, just feeling everything. As many of you might know, it took a while to set up this kind of global space. Not just a big space, but a long space, like a slow space where we can take our time to really look at something big. We know this is something not small and it deserves attention. It deserves energy. It deserves investment. So this is our second call for the week. We are holding 2 calls per round, if you might call it that, because of time zones. Those in the Americas, in Australia, Oceania, and Asia don't have the same sleep-wake cycle as many of you do. So this is the big room. The last room was about 20 people. This is the big room, as we know. Mostly people from Europe and the Americas as well, and the Middle East. So really amazed and terrified and excited about being in kind of space that's able to hold this much. And when we speak in this kind of gathering, there's a lot that's coordinating. There's a lot coming together. So it's changing me already myself. Like I can feel it. I can really feel it. It's massive. So I'm gonna speak maybe by way of introducing certain concepts, certain themes that would help us to have a conversation within the community, not just today, with your own community, like the global community, the eco village where there are 8 billion people in the world. How do we speak as one? And inner dance holds a role in how we can listen and speak at the same time. We are set to organize a global mind. In a way, there's a global brain that's emerging, that's partly because of the internet, partly because of the internet. And we're learning to think as this global collective consciousness. It's like an art form, it's like a science, it's like a spiritual journey unto itself. And in a way, it goes deeper than just a spiritual practice. So I have to really take care in how I might share every single word in a way that conserves energy, in a way that also communes. Um, there is so much information because there is change happening. And the kind of change that's happening is multi-dimensional change, where change itself is changing. So we are having to learn how to talk about everything all at once, all at the same time. And this is how we might define resonance, that everything can be spoken to whether it be an hour, like a day, a year. So we unravel today what is inner dance, as we will keep doing that. What is that consciousness? For some, it's a spiritual modality. It's something that we do, but it's the consciousness. It's a way of perceiving the world in a different way, in a way that might have always been there, but may not have been as available, as easy as it might be now, that we are now accessing this more safely and more freely. I'm going to go to my whiteboard because I'd like to, yeah, speak through the image. I will always, I will keep doing that often because it's something that's always been a way of, yeah, conveying information through sound and image. Okay, so this was a couple of days ago. Let me make a new page. Okay, so what is it? We can call it inner dance. We can call it energy, life force, kundalini, divine, feminine, flow. But it's something that we can name or not name. I was meditating today as I was waking up. What is this? What has this been? What does it mean that there is this thing? I would reflect on the many experiences and sharings people would speak. Sometimes people would share, okay, I became the energy, I entered the universe, I went back to the womb of the mother, I went back to the earth, I went cosmic, I went in the quantum field, I became a hologram. There are these experiences that have been shared over and over again. One of the experiences I realized today that kept getting shared, and I barely even take notice because it's shared so many times, again and again, is I died. Okay, in the sense, people often compare inner dance to ayahuasca, where death is a common experience. And inner dance is actually a common experience. It could be from people who had no idea what this was. They walk in, they lay down, and they say, "Oh, I don't know what happened, but I died." There are times even when people say, I died so many times. I kept dying and I kept dying and kept dying. So in a way, inner dance could be defined as a way of dying. There's something about death that speaks hugely here. And maybe we don't really understand death and we can talk about it openly. I think death is a really interesting topic in the new year. It doesn't seem like it should be something to talk about, but it is a starting point. And if we were to find a sense of beginning of what this energy is, we will die gladly, joyfully, happily. That maybe that which terrifies people the most doesn't have to be so intense, so um, something that we are denying. So in many ways, inner dance is actually allowing that which we are um, keeping at bay. And when we allow it, we experience the opposite of pain. There's bliss, there's joy. So in my own experience, if I was to use myself as a starting point, I went through a what you might call a collapse. And I think this is a good starting point for anyone wanting to understand what this is, for anyone wanting to hold the space. This is what we are studying. This is what we're conducting. How do you allow for that which is inbuilt, something entropic inside people's minds and bodies, that there's an eventual collapse, an eventual death that actually wants to happen, is a tendency that we are keeping back, that we're denying. And if we allow it, ironically, the collapse actually leads to the opposite of a collapse. Something rises, something is born, something emerges when we, like Jenny said, surrender, when we let go. So the question is, how do we create the conditions where this becomes possible for anyone? You know, this is what we're studying. When you study the framework, when you study the process itself of asking people to lay down as if they were sleeping or they were in death, closing their eyes and using different techniques to do a sound, touch, words, context, people are able to do it. And usually, obviously, that happens within certain conditions of trust, safety. Maybe this is what people are looking for. Like, who do I, where do I, like, how do I trust? And we do live in a very not trustworthy planet, based on the training, based on how we are initiated or indoctrinated into life. So this is it. It's this simple. And because there is a resistance to this, then it becomes extraordinary. This very simple thing is such a big deal for many because this, by design, is something we are preventing, that we are denying this. So in my own realm, because I underwent this, okay? I mean, if I was just to signify this, a signifier would be something descending. I allowed myself to descend, maybe since a child, but especially in my adult years, I allowed myself to undergo a death. Inner dance is a way of systematizing this. Oh, that's not how it's spelled. Uh, systematizing this. We are actually achieving a systematic collapse. We can contain, we can program the collapse. We're finding out how this could actually happen, and it's normalized. All across the world right now, people are finding how easy it is, in fact, to go to what might be called a 0 point, a point of nothing, like zero. And you can be so creative about this. There's so many ways of bringing people here. Inner dance is an aggregate or a collection of the many, many things that brings about the 0 point. We've experienced and studied this for so many years. Like, what are the conditions where people would let go? And if you can find those conditions, when you can collect them all in one space, in one room, in one process, then that is what inner dance is. We systematize death. We created a joyful, happy, inevitable, and beautiful death that can happen in an individual or in a group space. And now people call it different names. Now there are different emerging techniques that would make the different pathways to death interesting. beautiful. So I think this is just important to talk about right now, that this is something we're doing. And just even being able to speak about it, it becomes so simple. It becomes so exciting. And then we can start doing things with this. I think we can start to construct things with this. We will do that in the long term. For now, we would first ask, okay, so when that happens, that would be the how, and then what for? What's the point? Why? Um, what is there when an actual death takes place? I have my own experiences, and they are outside of the spiritual workshop. I experienced that in my solitude. I designed a workshop called Inner Dance in order to share with others what I had gone through when when I had undergone my death. Um, Now that's not a simple thing to outline what happens when you do die. It is possible to die without dying. It's possible to undergo the death of limitation, of ego. Um, so I feel describing somewhat what does happen, not just in my own experience, it does happen in the long-term transformations when people go into retreats, when people live in community where they are supported to go really deep. The manifestations of dying are there, and there are many, many stages. One stage that I am particularly aware of right now is the stage called doubt. It's very present in my space. Like there was a friend of mine who visited Maya yesterday, and he was going through his own death process, and I'm just watching him die. And one of the interesting things that happens when people go through the initial stages prior to a real awakening is there's doubt. There's what you might call hyperbolical doubt. Hyperbolical doubt is systemic doubt. You can actually systematize this idea that everything is an illusion, nothing is real. I don't know what to believe in. So a lot of people who are into, let's say, um, conspiracy theorizing is a form of hyperbolical doubt. I was listening to this man come up here to Maya, and he was talking about how there were evil people who were chasing him. He cannot sleep in hotel rooms unless he turns the mattress upside down because of the nanobots and the AI that's trying to take over his body. That's the kind of hyperbolical doubt. It's a dimension of mind where we start asking questions regarding what is real, what is true. So hyperbolical doubt is going to show up in the spaces that we hold. There would be a lot of people entering into the space not knowing what to believe in anymore. And in that, they are actually also experimenting with the opposite of doubt. They're looking for something to trust. And sometimes that's going to manifest as the absence of trust, because that is the issue. People are wanting to feel oneness. They are looking for connections. But on the way to that, because there has been experience where people trusted and something happened to the trust, where there's actually a loss of trust. To get people to trust once again, there has to be a process. There has to be a way. And that is where the experience becomes valuable. Because when people do have the experience of that which might have been innate in birth, and that which might have been lost because of the experience of the opposite of that, um, Then you have to be creative, crafty, tricky. You have to find a psychology that would understand how persons can peel away the layers of the onion, or like how to break down the walls. What would it be to allow people to discover like what is underneath all illusion, all judgments. So inner dance holds a huge story on possibly what it could mean to bring people to this. So in my experience, I discovered hyperbolical trust. Inner dance for me as a consciousness was everything is connected. Everything is happening for a reason. Everything we need is already inside of us. Everything that happens to us is always supporting our highest evolution, our highest good. No matter how horrible, no matter how difficult, we're always headed towards light. And I was able to achieve that based on perspectives that I had, that the whole world was made of light. A lot of people mention energy, but I was given specifically by the Earth Mother, by planetary consciousness, we are made of light. We came from light. And for me, that wasn't just conceptual. I was given an explanation of how we began with sunlight and we were stored in plants. Then we incarnated within animals and humans. But basically, we were light and we are going back to light. Um, so when I became light, I became a being of light. I became a being of energy. Um, I want to describe to you what happens when we become light. Um, be, because we, because I had achieved a 0 point, because I had died. I was not really my person anymore. I was alone. I was on earth. Something happened to my mind, and I am reminded of this more and more. When I watch others, I am reminded of where I was. But there's something inside me that wants to remember what was it like to have been there in the space of purity, in my solitude, when I became light, when I became energy. When you go into that level of hyperbolical trust, there's basically openness. So I started to experience something very, very strange. I started to ask questions. And these questions were so basic. These are questions that we do not ask because they are so basic that you would not dare ask them, because we are supposed to know the answers to these basic questions. Um, these questions basically, if I was to describe it, if you had looked at the Violet page in the wiki or the website, I de-ontologized the basic things of the world. Okay, to ontologize means to make it real, to establish that it is something that exists. I would ask certain questions like, what is food? Okay, now a lot of people wouldn't ask this question because we think we would know what food is, but because I was in a situation where I was not eating. If I was eating, I was eating only one kind of food. I was hardly eating that food, just coconuts. And I was eating I was eating air. I was learning to eat light. I was interested in consuming light and clean air and energy. So for me, food wasn't just a hamburger or rice or spaghetti or pizza. I was interested in the true nature of this thing that we put into our mouths and digest. And then I just kept going with it. I asked, what is sleep? And the practice was simple. It was to start out with the notion that I don't know anything about this, or I don't know what that is. And in my openness, I could experience these in different ways, ways that I've never experienced. I just kept on going. Like I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about this. And I just kept on going and going and going. So my mind coming from here, I could grow. Let's say I started here, the point in the middle. And before I could expand or extend from this core, this middle space, everything was the same. Everything was empty. Everything was zero. Okay, I don't know anything about anything. And I was basically practicing a phenomenology. Phenomenology is interested in the heart of the phenomenon. And one practice in phenomenology is called bracketing. So bracketing is an exercise in suspending judgment or suspending beliefs about the thing that you think that you know. Judgment plays a really big part in this process. In my own process, I had gone into the island. I had gone into nature because I was tired of judgment, and I was interested in what would it be like if we stopped judging. Um, and I discovered what that could mean. Like literally, I'm happy to maybe discover or talk about that more. So that's basically one of the things that I did. That's one of the reasons why I stayed alone. If I'm in a social environment, the social environment is normally filled with the things people know or think they know about me, about themselves, about the world, about religion, culture. And being only with nature, I was able to suspend everything that I knew, even about the basic things. Later, these would become complex, not basic things, to do with, like the brain, the nervous system, the organs, the human body, thoughts in general. Um, I think this is important to bring up, just so we are aware that this is something people would enter into, and it may be necessary that we start with a 0 point. So this is what happened to me. I bracketed. I I basically became a basic person. I became a basic human being. And in that, I experienced food, or let's just call it nutrition, in a very, very different way. I realized that sound is food. The words that we hear are food, and sometimes we're not able to digest them. Light is food. So when I opened up my definition of food, I experienced other forms of nutrition. Sleep is always going to be one of the most interesting questions. I don't think we understand anything about sleep. We're taught that we need to sleep about 8 hours a day. I stopped sleeping when I was alone. I stopped sleeping. I was sleeping hours per week. So I realized that we don't actually need to sleep when we can find in wake state that which we are looking for in sleep. There are reasons why we sleep. There are vibrations, there are brain states, there are oscillations that we need, actually combinations of them. And if you can achieve that while you're awake, you don't actually need to experience sleep. And I find sleep to be, it's nice, but if you didn't actually need to do it that much, then there's so much that could be accomplished. And many people have gone through very, very deep processes. I watch them. They don't necessarily need sleep as much anymore. So this might be speaking to some of you. So I just kept on going, on and on and on. Later on, when I began the work, I was interested in the body. I worked with people's bodies. What is the brain? What is time? What is space? What is history? What is one of my favorites is this. If we don't actually define it as music, if it is organized vibration, organized information, organized sound, and then it's not just music anymore. It's not music. We would de-ontologize music. A lot of people ask, why is music bringing about this much healing to people? I would take a step back and say, are we talking about music, or are we talking about something a lot older, something a lot more? And maybe music had always been that. It's just that music, as we define it, is what we hear in the radio, what we see on MTV. Music has been there in religion, in ancient cultures. It has been there for a long time, and maybe it's only now we can finally hear the music. We would ask this again and again. What is language? What did we achieve in language? And how are we, in fact, experiencing language in different ways, like light language, um, high intelligence, alien language that courses through people's bodies that transcend linear time, as language might have been bound by time in the past. So all of these I invite you to ask. When you hold the space for others, don't be afraid to ask questions like, who are you? What are we? Where are we coming from? How big? How deep? How old? Ask these questions, not because we don't know the answers. It's to create the space for revelation. And that is what children do. They ask. And this is what is traumatized out of us. When we lose awe, wonder, and curiosity, then we're not learning anymore. That means we're not open. It's more like, I think I know already what that is. I don't need to ask. So that's the starting point. When we go through death, there would be this hugely. And I think to bring that about in others, it needs to be present inside you. For you to trust, you also need to be fully open. That there's so much that we don't know yet that is somewhere in here and out there known. It's knowable. And in the space of not having to know something about it, we actually open the space of knowing, maybe even everything about it, which is what openness gives or brings about. Okay, so yeah, it's very humbling to start with that. So what comes after that? Okay, so we ask the questions. We ask the questions, right? And answers or insights will appear. The question is, from where? Now, when we study something like like inner dance, excuse me. When we study something like inner dance, you can either perceive this as something in and of itself outside of evolution, outside of time, something that can have existed, let's say thousands, hundreds of years ago. It's a consciousness that's called the dream state, the life of you, the birth vision, something outside of time. Inner dance belongs to the moment. And so one way of understanding it is, at what point in history is it also emerging? It belongs to the moment. It belongs to the age of connection, the age of electricity. It belongs to the age of change. Um, and so when inner dance did come through in my body, it was 17 years ago. It's been fermenting in the world. It was bound to come up. with or without me, with or without you. It was on its way. The consciousness itself was on its way. A lot of people might realize when they look at the timelines, inner dance came when Facebook was beginning to emerge. Social media, YouTube, Wikipedia, all of these were starting to be accessed, not just by Western people who have more access to wealth, bodies, minds in Africa and Asia, all over the world. Something was happening, and if we were to word that, it was Earth as a global brain. It was the collective consciousness. We are basically shifting from the ego, that which is bound up by the personal, the subjective, because of technology, because of travel, because of just everything that's been happening over the last 2 or 3 decades. This was on its way. And through spiritual practice or not, people are going to experience what is coming about. We are connecting with each other. This meeting was not possible years ago. Just you in your home, being spoken to and being listened to in this way, that you have a voice, you have access, you can ask questions, you can give insight, you can establish feedback. This was on its way. So inner dance as a consciousness is an experience of what was inevitable. So when you then study what this means, okay, when people say I died, okay, you can romanticize that, okay, like you died. Something needs to come over that. Something else needs to be born if one thing dies. This is what's on its way. This is what's on its way out. This is what it's on its way in, or up, or forward, or this is what is happening. We are merely experiencing something that's already quite manifest, and it's only a matter of time before we do zone out and zone in to find the conditions where we would then experience something we already know, that we are one. There will be the resistance to that, and we can still see that happening right now. Otherwise, there wouldn't be war, there wouldn't be judgment, there wouldn't be boundaries being set up. It says, okay, you're there and I'm here and we're separate. But at the same time, there is acceptance and there's a flow. So with that, if that wasn't just going to be an experience, the experience is hiding something. Oops. The experience is hiding something. It's hiding knowledge. It's hiding wisdom. That which we experience is also that which we know. Everything that we experience brings about with it a wisdom. To become it is to know it. And it's only a matter of time before the mind catches up with what the body unravels. So this is what we're getting ready for. What does it mean to think and feel as a planet? It would mean that you had been here for a really, really long time. So one of the questions to ask is, how old are you? It would never get old. Just keep asking it in the space that you hold. Do you know how old you are? That they say, oh, I'm 34, I'm 28. I'm 52. And then you go, really? And so you would transmit different ways of asking the question. You can do it through vibration. You can still do it through words. You can do it through touch. Any signaling mechanism that allows people to remember their actual age, right? Happy birthday, would bring about the experience of it. So that's how we have been doing. That's how we've done it. We have inbuilt various signaling mechanisms that allows people to experience what they are, not just who you are, but what are we. And when that comes about, this becomes possible. And as a holder, as a guide, as someone um, assisting or in service, to become aware of how that transition would play out from the individual to the planetary. What would it mean to scaffold a global brain or a global mind safely? It doesn't need to happen. A lot of people go into energy in the 0 point, and they not knowing where the energy is coming from, they actually just go back to what they know. This is critical. Um, you will be guided by what you know, and the space of not knowing guides you into what does the earth know. So it depends on how you present or are presented this. A lot of people are happy enough to experience energy and then to use the energy for status, power, getting what they need, what they want, making more money, making more friends, feeling more secure, yet actually hiding the fact that it makes them keep looking for validation in a way that they're not actually loving themselves, because true love happens when there is a true remembrance of what is I am, what is the self. So holding space for both the person and the planet, um, energetically, musically, um, like the way you touch the energy, the way you hold the space. How are you holding what you are holding based on the paradigm? Like, what is your understanding of this? Because I lived alone with the mother, I had no confusions around this. It was only when I went back to society where I had to be conscious that people were asking a lot of questions related to a non-actualized self that was trying to achieve success, trying to achieve stability or sustainability. I I didn't have that because I transcended early. I had let go. I surrendered myself to the mother without access to any resources. I just trusted the earth. And so there would probably be a mixture of the person and the planet becoming each other. I find that they are all valuable. It's just that it's important to talk about this, just to clarify what resources are you deriving the energy from. And so when this does come about, and I really am interested in people becoming planetary consciousness. I believe that we were born with this, and I believe that this was shaken out of us, that this is buried underneath the ground, and we have to dig for what did the earth look like when we were 1 year old, or 6 months old, or 3 months old? What did the world look like when we were in the womb? And because a lot of this is being shared by way of feedback in the experience, it is becoming real. but an actual wisdom or an actual intelligence that comes from having have lived here for a long time. It's not just going to be about dropping in and blanking out. There has to be what's called stages of development. There has to be a chance for real growth. We need to grow into it. And a lot of that work is going to happen outside of the energy practice. The energy practice is very, very good at the opposite of growth, which is to deconstruct, to allow for the energy descent. But for growth to happen, for us to mature and to grow up, there has to be an energy that rises up. And for that, we would rediscover language. We'd rediscover thoughts, words in a way that we would understand the construct of our own consciousness a little bit more. Starting from 0 point, starting from not knowing, the knowing will come. So yeah, I think that's quite exciting. Earth as Consciousness, the Global Village by Marshall McLuhan, where he spoke about the Earth is going to become a central nervous system when we discover electricity as a medium of communication. And really what's happening is an integration of sorts, because we have access, because we have democratized information, because we have access, then there would be a synthesis to happen. In my body, in the beginning, synthesis was more to do with light. I understood how to photosynthesize light in my body upon activating the endocrine system, upon activating the nervous system. You can actually digest, you can digest light, you can digest information as light, as energy. And to digest means to also learn to build new cells, new neural pathways. At the same time, it's not just photosynthesis that happens. There's a psychosynthesis that takes place where we would also digest data or information. So a lot of you are probably accessing books, movies, conversations in a way that you're able to hold a lot more data, and you're able to synthesize that data, creating new memories, new conceptualizations of the world. Now, these two happen together. I can't go too deeply into this, but there's something happening in the human eye, the visual cortex, the auditory cortex. There's something happening in the different lobes of the brain, through the spine, all the way to the DNA. There's a lot of changes happening in the way we're able to hold, store, and process information. Technically, there's a shift. There is a transition in terms of how we are managing energy. There's an energy transformation taking place. And these are stories. These are stories of how energies are held in our system. We are moving from the story of energy, let's say energy consumption. This idea that we need to consume energy from outside in order to subsist or to thrive. There's also a lot of energy competition still happening. These are old stories that are being told in people's bodies that need to move into like new stories. So initially, my story was one of energy conservation. It's the idea that less is more. It's the idea that everything I need is already inside of us, and I don't need to consume or buy or purchase that. They're stories of conversion. And this is what it really means to learn to digest everything that you might have eaten or consumed, everything that you might have ever absorbed. How would you convert that? And when all of that is possible, an energy conversation, energy communion takes place inside your body. It's all happening when you are less in this, and when you learn to conserve, to save, a transformation automatically will happen. And in the spiritual process that we are conducting, that is very much at work already. I think, interestingly, to maybe drop this into human levels, I experienced this my whole life. Like I had always absorbed the pain body of others. And I think one of the greatest fears people told is to be judged, to be less, to not be worthy, to be a bad person. There's something in the inner dance that's actually the story of judgment. And this is how we can heal war. This is how we can heal disease. This is a secret to how we can heal poverty. We actually need to accept that which is being thrown around the world. So when you study the inner dance as a form, as a practice, it looks like someone's laying down. It looks like someone's being touched in a certain way. It sounds like there's music being used. Go into a phenomenology and bracket that deeply. The design of the inner dance is actually a way in which we can absorb the pain of the world. And if you achieve a body state where there is openness and most especially fluidity, when the energy enters the body and when you're not resisting, when you're not holding it in place, that energy, whether it be pain, whether it be judgment or an emotion, it's just going to flow. And when it does, that's when a change happens. And that's how we can heal the problem at the roots. There's so many perceived solutions as to, okay, what can we do? We can eat the right food. We can change our lifestyles. But a lot of that doesn't actually become possible if we have not learned to digest the energy from the deepest possible way, that which we had absorbed through not just one lifetime. How would you process all of that? I don't think the person can do it alone, per se. I think we need to access something a lot older, something a lot wider, something holding dimensions that would be wide and deep and old enough to perceive the nature of all things. There has to be that amount of wisdom to allow for us to truly process. And I think this is not yet known. This is not yet understood that this is even possible. There are the basic experiences of, okay, wow, that was energy, that was kundalini, that was life force. But spend a long enough time could be in an island, it could be in a mountain, it could be on a desert, it could be in your room. It could be vibratory time. It doesn't need to be a year. It could just be now. It could be tomorrow. It just resonate that you are what you are. You would be able to digest this one, and you would just see things from a higher space, an open space, initially suspending what you think you know or what they think they know, and giving it enough time so the judgment does digest into something else altogether. However long it takes, what would be the conditions that allow for the movement from something small to something a lot more objective, not personalizing something, but seeing it from how something that's lived through the many days, the many eons, whatever it would take. And I believe that this isn't hard, primarily because this was on its way. It's not something we need to do. We just have to accept that this is the time. This is precisely the one point in the story when a synthesis could be possible. Mechanistically, how does inner dance come into all this? This is initially the source, the story of how the mechanism that's being practiced out there was born. But the mechanism does hold systematicity. So how does inner dance, what does inner dance, how does inner dance pave the way for persons to start to perceive things as planets? And were we to create schools, we would make sure that children don't forget who and what they are before they lose it as a dimension. When we look at certain words and when we're open, we would find at the heart of the words certain meanings that are imprinted. Like when you look at the heart of the word death, you have EAT. You look at the heart of the word life, you have this. What does it mean that at the heart of the word life is the word if? There's something that opens up universally, I would say, in inner dance that allows that experience to be so pervasively explosive and deep for a lot of people. Inner dance as a technology does many things. One of the things it does is it unleashes trapped electricity, allowing for action potentials to spread across regions of the brain, achieving synchronization that brings about the effects, whether it be bliss, whether it be yeah, all these sensations, body moving the way it does, accessing different dimensions. It's because we have learned how to unleash trapped electricity in the nervous system. And the nervous system is really just there to organize and make manifest electricity and magnetism in the body. So when that happens, we remember what it was like when we had not yet trapped electricity. And there were ways, evolutionary speaking, to have made that, to limit that. How did we trap electricity? And this is what I love to study. Language actually plays a huge part in limiting the potency that was there. So one thing that happens is in inner dance is we create a language descent. We create a way in which the language parts of the brain shuts down momentarily. This is exciting study, how we're able to do that. Language as a linear construct that allows mind to unravel meanings one point at a time. So language evolution took place over how long? Some might say, okay, it took 2 million years. It took 200,000 years, depending on how you perceive language, either from the most basic ability to hold mental representations inside of what's happening outside, or it could be symbolization, it could be constructing or repeating certain sounds and combinations of sounds so that they start to hold more abstract meaning. Language evolution was important in limiting the amount of connections that were available to the basic organism. So in a way, we got really smart, but in a way, we actually lost a lot of potential. How do what's the way of explaining this? We might understand this through the actual facilitation work. It's very easy to initially experience the 0 point or the bliss state when people first lay down. Maybe for the first year or second year, people lay down and they experience the 0 point. They become like babies. And then when you move from someone laying down to someone who learns to facilitate the energy, to become a facilitator, you would bring this about in other people. But there's something actually quite scary about either coming from the 0 point and coming back into what it means to be a person, or to move from the 0 point to become a facilitator of this process. It has something to do with making choices once again. Okay, so when you go into the space where no language exists, there are no choices that are specific. What you choose is basically everything. When you achieve that state where you lay down and you become pure flow, you don't work with semantic choices. Words are in a way of making decisions, like to define, which is a word, what a word does. To define is to make finite, which is not infinite. And there's something in the way we have organized the brain. So it wasn't just language evolving, it was the brain evolving. We basically contralateralize the brain so that there's a side of the brain that normally holds the sequential thinking process, and there's a side of the brain that holds the non-sequential feeling process. When we go into the consciousness of inner dance, that contralateralization goes away, and there's an ipsilateral experience where the left and the right become the same. Like the brain becomes a whole brain rather than a bipolar brain. And that's one of the manifestations of language devolving or going through an involution rather than an evolution. So when we go back into words, we need to make choices. And it's very, very terrifying, in fact, to make choices. This is one of the reasons why it's very scary to hold the energy. And when people start to practice what's called playlisting, okay, this inner dance experience of okay, choosing certain songs, choosing certain sounds, even choosing silence at certain points. Honestly, it's actually quite terrifying to decide, how do I know which music, which sound, which vibration leads to the combinations of which leads to a journey. Whether it be only one person is there or there's 10 people or 20 or 30 people in a room, to actually process that, to think about it, like, how do I know which one? That's a huge threshold. Some people need to pass through. It's like a gate that one needs to pass through. And without trust, one would not make it to the other side. It would be pretty much, I'm just overwhelmed by everything that's going on all at the same time. So that is a multi-stage understanding of the process, that when certain people go into the baby state, let's say light language is happening, let's say they, the baby is the universe, and there's no point in choosing because everything is happening all at the same time. To actually make your way back into time, into narrative, into history, where things are going to once again happen one at a time. One of the reasons then why playlisting is a part of the healing process is, before one goes back into words, when you're still experiencing the all at once, at least to speak through vibration, um, to make choices or commitments in vibration one at a time, then that at least still holds something less finite, vibrations holding a lot more infinity than words do. Words do contain really well that which is very, very big. Learning to speak through vibrations in the beginning allow for the expression of that which is being felt, that which is being experienced. So that's why we do it in many ways. That's why we do it. So going back to this word, we had just experienced it through COVID, how terrified we are of the unknown.
Sure.
The
Which out.
um
Yeah.
okay, yeah, so I think this is what we had lost, and the inner dance regains our openness to uncertainty. We're being open to not just uncertainty, but contradictions, paradoxes. So the art of playlisting basically allows for the unknown to make its way into here. You will never know. That is the point. You will never know, and you will always have to transcend. You'll always have to pass through the threshold in order to snatch from out there to bring that to what is here. And when you are in the right conditions, it will always be the right element. It's always going to be the right vibration. It's always going to be precise. It's always going to be accurate, especially when you're doing the wrong thing. But when you're trusting it, then it's always going to be the right one. It always will be the right one. And we would open ourselves to another brain that hadn't closed itself yet because of the amount of control, the amount of sequencing, putting certain things in the right order, the right chronology in order for things to be right. So what we would see is a brain plasticity, a mind plasticity, the ability to reshape, the ability plasticity, the ability to unshape and reshape worlds. And for that reason, we cannot keep language and thought structured the same. There has to be number one, a deconstruction, and then a reconstruction of both language and thought. A post-structuralism has to happen before we can restructure ourselves. Restructure ourselves. So I'm trying to complete the circle here where we started. Okay, we are being given a technology where we can create conditions for a collapse that we have now, the safe space where people can undergo an actual death, knowing that something will rise after the death, and that is a planetary consciousness that isn't just a new age thing now. It's primarily like we have access. We have democratized energy and information in this age of connection. So you would need to account for the restructuring process. You would study okay, how do I allow people to collapse? And if I can do that, how do we rebirth not just individuals, but a new culture, a new society? So before closing, something I wanted to elaborate on is some of you might resonate with the terror, just how anxious we are on making choices, making commitments. When a baby grows up, there's a term called apoptosis, where a baby up to maybe the age of 2, maybe 2 years old, maybe up to 3 years old, maybe just up to 2, 1.5 years old, something like that. So much information had been absorbed in the world, in the brain, the body, the mind of a baby up to a certain age. Why is there S there? And before a baby arrives in language acquisition, the baby actually needs to remove initially the memories that were absorbed. So a lot of the first information needs to undergo a wiping away, and there's a kind of childhood amnesia that initially takes place. This was from Sigmund Freud, and it is I think, a viable and robust idea. So initially, the same thing happens to those who have gone through an initial awakening or spiritual awakening process. In the first stage, you will have beginner's luck. You will experience flow. And in that flow, even though it doesn't seem like you can hold on to memories that much, there's a lot of data, there's a lot of insight being absorbed. But initially, there has to be a wiping away of the initial stages of information digestion that had come up. And that could take months, that could take years. And after that, there will be this intense neurogenesis that takes place, meaning the amount of brain cells that are being born, that are being created, the amount of synapses that are undergoing connections, it's going to be a lot. And so when you decide to emerge from the state of flow, and then when you decide to, let's say, study, learn, to not just experience, but to know, this neurogenesis is now happening. And I think this is a good New Year's message that for those who have been through a lot, for those who have been through much, when this happens, the new cells, new brain cells will come about, new knowledge, new wisdom, new thought process coming from that feeling state. So apoptosis is like a pruning. It's like you're getting rid of the connections that you didn't need. And that would happen at the same time as neurogenesis. Learning happens when you say, okay, I don't actually need, okay, I'm interconnected. I'm totally connected, but now I need to make choices. And this might give you another view of the evolutionary concept called natural selection. How long has natural selection been happening? Not just in nature, but inside you. The one sperm cell to enter the egg cell was a great battle. So every single thought that enters your mind and then becomes prominent, one. There's a natural choosing. Yet what is happening is because you are entering into dimensions where it's not enough to just choose one thing at a time. What you are developing is a brain or a mind that is able to hold multiple choices at the same time. That's where contradictions, paradoxes, and uncertainty needs to become familiar to you. That as soon as you choose light, you must also choose that which is not always light. So learning to hold to hold both, to hold all of the dualities so that one becomes possible to the other, choosing not just one side, but both sides in your body, allowing for both. This is what is missing in the human experience. So coming from zero, shifting into totalities, able to hold both. This is what is not really normalized, or it's natural, but it's something else had been normalized. So to normalize that which is truly natural, then we would experience that. We would really know what it means to live that. Okay, so I would stop there because the only goal for today is to give an introduction to a big body of work. And I think it's really quite important that you are able to hold a big middle space, an essential space, before you expand to the technical elements that are just as interesting. Love to open up the space for reflections, for questions, for ideas, and maybe what the spoken helps you to understand certain things that have been happening, that is happening, that will be happening, has happened. Yeah. So let's have a dialogue. This could involve the other space holders of local regional groups. Could be all of you as well who are learning what it means to possibly hold space for this kind of energy. Even if it's just to resonate or yeah, like hold a question that could. So I'll mute and I'll wait for anyone who would like to just sound out. Thank you for listening.
I have a question. It was intriguing to me when you mentioned the word neurogenesis at the end. And I dived into this course really not understanding much about how to facilitate, or am I going to be able to do it to myself? So my question is, will I be able to experience this for myself, this neurogenesis with inner dance? Thank you.
Mm. I think anyone who's had a single experience, you can't really undo the change. What you are experiencing is what's happening to you. And so take any of those as actual transformations already. The transformation doesn't have to be, we don't even need to repeat certain things that we've been through. Primarily because an actual experience is a marker of something that had already been happening. It just needed like a focal point. So neurogenesis could either be seen as uh, it, it happens usually for people who are experiencing like uh, the opposite of clarity often. It's like I can't speak. I can't put certain things into words. I feel like a baby sometimes. Um, I feel empty. I can't function as I normally might as an adult human being. I feel like a child. Um, the baby has a lot more neurons than the adult. So one question is, are we able to go back to the wisdom of the baby by achieving the something closer to the kinds of connections we had when we were in the womb or when we were babies? So I think that could be gentle. It doesn't need to be intense. And for me, a lot of the reasons why I do this work is it allows me to die. I never know what's going to happen, and it's quite scary to bring other people into like the energy space. And when I'm able to go into the unknown like that, then I can experience myself just opening up and growing. So I think because we're interested, we're committed, we're on the journey. Anything that we do that opens up our space allow for a birthing of new connections to happen. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hi. Hey,
Mm.
Pi. Thank you. I have a question. I facilitated for three of my very dear friends, and in the experience, it was so. I don't know if I was me experiencing zero point. I don't want. I can't even put words to it, but it was so unified, and my heart was like boom. And then on that same day, that one of the girls was actually about to die through an allergic reaction. And so I'm just sharing this because I resonate so much with death. And it was like, and it was like, it was so unified because then I had the reaction and I got sick with her for a week. So I was wondering, and everyone was wondering, oh my God, was this part of the inner dance? What was that? You know? So I just felt like sharing that. And it just came to me this when you're talking about death.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, it's so huge what you're saying. The mind would go, okay, did I actually help her to die? But I think we're all dying, and dying is actually life-giving. Um, so we are in a way midwifing death. I mean, the moment we do achieve death in its state of life, we can do anything. When you conquer death, anything is possible. But there would be these instances where an actual death is happening, and for a person to meet that with perspective and joy, I think we're becoming friends with it. And in the region where you are, it's quite a big conversation at the moment. So it's very relevant. Thank you.
Hi, Pai. Here's Oscar. Thank you so much for this lecture. I would like to share some thoughts and also the way that I was following you and envisioning you, your sharing and your lecture. Well, to me, it was quite interesting from the actual context where we are from different part of the world and we are seeing these different brain regions and how the vision about how we affect the collective language and the meaning, how these functions are changing in society through different response, but also through inner dance and with the space that we share with people. How the concepts and reactions and interactions and chemistry for things like death, change, life, love, meaning, yes, all this capacity to respond completely to beings more available to respond completely from their own integrity, the wholeness of themselves. Yes, and how also paradoxically in the concept of dying is very interesting. The affirmation of the life in the I can say it through the resurrection, which is the opposite, the constant resurrection of life, the everlasting life giving, and this infinite support from the mother and from this principle of the space that we are entering through this chapter and and this other dimensionality when we are not seeing resources diminishing or something that is taken from one place and put it in another one. Everything is facilitated. So yes, it was very interesting to see how these topics and the way that we are affecting the structure of the perception of time in our groups and our spaces and our communities and the people that they used to come to our sessions, how we are collapsing these realities through the bodies of them, how they are actualizing, and we are actualizing with them. We are also, as a facilitators, if we go through this art of learning and reflecting, we also are going through this beneficial process of holding a space and being changed through the process. So how the word change can include dying, easily, how become this mental and emotional response more friendly between death and change, how ego can relate to death through change in a way that other values can emerge to the surface and to an understanding. And we can go through another philosophical questions and not a survival aspect of the death, the change, and the thing. So it was very inspiring. Thank you so much. I was taking notes, and it was a very good lecture. And greetings to everyone.
Yeah, I enjoyed listening to you on this one. Amazing. Tom, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Pi. I also have pages of notes to digest and synthesize and pull together on that. One thing I've noticed since starting doing the inner dance is my relationship to sickness, and my relationship to and being ill has really changed quite dramatically. And I was very sick over this Christmas period, but it felt so kind of real and alive in a way, to be able to go into a kind of a death process and just let it happen, like let this, like the judgments compost, and there was a lot on that, this idea of composting judgments and feeling all of the, it's almost like as I felt myself being able to open up to the sensation or the experience of sickness, I could feel the words kind of falling apart that were holding the thing together in place, as it was happening. And it did feel like a transformational process. Like the sickness really felt like a transformational process, and I feel like I've come out of it the other side with a different kind of clarity. So I guess I just wanted to reflect on that a little bit, how this process for me has really started to shift my relationship with death and what it means, and how I head towards it and how I head into it, and invert that pain avoidance thing, like seeking out opportunities to die a little bit, to die a little bit more, and feeling what's on the other side of it and how that builds trust in the end. And I was really interested in what you were saying about the playlisting as well, because I've always found that to be a very healing process in itself. Like when you start to build your own playlists and make your own sounds, and that for me is as healing, if not more healing, than lying down and listening to someone else's sounds. So playlisting in music has always spoke to me quite a lot. And I mean, there's so much I could talk about here, but I won't. The other thing that I thought was really interesting was when you were speaking about this sense of overwhelm and having to make choices and decisions and commitments, like commit to a sound, commit to a word, make a choice. It's like linearize it, put a dot, put a point in time, and make it, string it out into something that pulls it together, that magnetizes it into something. And the kind of the terror and the overwhelm and the almost like the feeling of finality that comes with that sometimes, like if I make this choice, it's going to be the one choice that ends all other choices. And seeing what's on the other side of that really, it really spoke to me about this idea of being in the freeze response. And the freeze response, this kind of high, this feeling of high magnetism, like everything's so shut and closed and frozen. It's like very high, feels like a very highly magnetic space where it's slowing down everything, and how that can also serve as like a portal to trust, like a gateway to trust. like to trust yourself into the freeze response. And I've had those experiences with depression where it's like you relax into it and it becomes almost like a beauty. It gives you access to some kind of beauty with it, which is a very strange feeling. It's a very unusual. It's not that I've been able to get there every time, but I know that that exists as a place to go to slow down with depression, to slow down with the freeze response so much that it actually kind of inverts in on itself and becomes a completely different experience. It just changes your relationship with it. It's down and it's up. Yeah, so anyway, I'll leave it there, I think, because I could go on, but thank you. It was wonderful to listen.
I'm sorry I dropped out. I wanted to resonate with you, Dom, because you helped to elaborate on something that I, I it's clear in my head, but it's not always easy to put into words. Death by mediation of nature is really about going back to diversity. There's something about the anthropos or the human that it's the opposite of diversity. It's like by design, we actually evolved in a way that limits the options. And so I remember when first COVID happened, I got sick around December. It was announced in November that there's this virus that's coming, and then I got super sick in December, and I felt like I was channeling something inside my own body. And then COVID came, and that just happened. You know that like you, I was also sick the last weeks. I was in the hospital. I had pneumonia, and then I read in the news right after that there was a pneumonia that's also starting to spread from China again. That's decimating a lot of hospital systems. It's spreading fast. So the same story is happening inside my own system now, where we need to go back to a lot of the connections that have been lost. And so the practice of laying down to the music, it's not easy to clarify, but there is a very real proposal we can forward that a neurodiversity and a biodiversity, a linguistic diversity, diversity of information, the way we start to uncombine and recombine probabilities to achieve the original state. And when I say that, it's not so accurate because we're also going into a state that's not coming from where we used to be, but headed towards where we're going. So redefining death is that death is actually about going back to the ecosystem, going back to pure potency, which is what we lost. Then what is dying is really just a dimensionality. And what is being born is another dimensionality. And this is something we would be talking about more and more, like actually establishing the feedbacks as to what combinations actually bring about which dimensional experience. So when people go into the womb, when they go into nature, when they go into the cosmos, we're actually realizing that there are certain algorithms in weird music, in inner dance music, and the kinds of music that we're using that's being channeled from our experience itself, informing the energy, informing itself in some kind of feedback loop. Like go there, go into that amount of complexity. don't be afraid. So I think what we are afraid of is mistakes. That's natural selection. That's evolution. It's like we had to perfect things so that we don't die, that we can prolong life. But what we actually need to do is to make mistakes. There's something about the evolution of the brain that has to do with error and rewards predictions, so that when we know that that's going to lead to something not good, we would limit, we would prune, we would cut the connection. So I think we need to become, we need to make mistakes. We need accidents, we need synchronicities. And there's something safe about being able to contain that within a spiritual process. And some people call that inner dance, some people call that breath work, and or some other thing. I think we're evolving, which is kind of weird because we are devolving so that a real evolution can happen. There's something about connections and combinations, selections that's very intuitive in our field, but there's something there that's really bringing about this other human being, the original and the alien human being. So thank you, because you're actually able to help me even like word out certain things that's there. That takes some, yeah. Okay, Gra, you want to share? Sorry, Sandrian, raise your hand
Hi.
first. Wait, Sandrian, she raised her hand first. Let's hear from her.
No,
Just
okay. Um, you hear me? Can you hear me?
it's good. Yes.
Um, yeah, I also like to respond on the evening in a way that I have some experience with energetic work and working with your ancestors or your spirit guides, or yeah, it's everyone has its own level, or its own base where they started from. Um, but it was so nice to see the experience from the beginning that I thought, yeah, I want to see what is it in the sense, in the dance, and from where does it get its roots. And thinking like, okay, because I own my business, but then you can see why I wanted to respond is because of the piece you talked about the fear of letting go, or let yourself going into that 0 point. And I now experienced it for, I think, 4 times, and I could always see how much more that I got in depth, and how much more that I let my body and mind know that I could shut out my mind and go into my body, and go into that 0 point. And it was really revealing. Um, and I have like some sleeping problems. So the next days I was really, I normally I get awake and I have the feeling that I only slept, that I was awake until 4 o'clock or something. So I was always very tired. So I was very clear and everything. So it gave me the energy and the spark, like, okay, I want to do it again. I want to do it again. And I always went more in depth, but at the other side, um, the last time or something that I was at some point I was shouting, let go of me, let go of me, let go of me, very hard. But from my conscious way, I don't have a remembering or something, like, I don't know from where it came. So the importance of going into the trust, even if when I was in that moment, another piece in me says it's okay, you're safe, your body just wants to move. And then my body starts shaking, 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 shaking. But I didn't feel unsafe. But when I went out, there was again the mind who takes it over, and puts it in a perspective question. Yeah, was it me or was it from someone else, or because I don't know from where it came. And so your mind takes it over again because you have the feeling you want to analyze what you experience. So yeah, you can see that it's going into the trust and the trust hold and letting go of what you know, of what you knew, of what you think you know. That is such an important peace holding. Because afterwards also, like I hear a lot from the other ones, I also went sick. I had a very deep discussion with my partners, but it went really deep. So you can see that the inner dance was just a vessel, but afterwards there was like a lot of transition and a lot of healing modality, but not to clear up, but more to go even more in depth. And like you say, you have to spend out to try to collaborate with all different dimensions that I also feel for myself, also for in a situation I live with a family, 3 kids and everything, that it also asks a lot of energy because you're now in a multi-dimensional world with different truths. But it triggers me a lot, but I also experience now that it also asks a lot of a commitment to go through it all or something. But I do it with love. But yeah, I felt it for things that has been said that it yeah, it concludes a lot of the information you were sharing. So thank you.
Thank you too. Yeah, like the trust, recognizing that. It's also beautiful that we're able to harvest more and more sharings and experiences of people who are going into that place that you're describing. And it could really only be described as multidimensional, like a dream within a dream space where so much is happening and we can't be conscious of something that's just so much that the mind is only now, we're just transitioning there. But somehow there's enough experiences and sharings coming from many that says that there are answers there waiting for us. It's just that we need to transform into a space where we can recognize what is there. It's almost like an energy literacy, like when you're learning to read a book, learning how to read, learning a new language. It's like we're learning a new language, and when we get there, but I think because we're still on the way, it's already just helpful to know that there are people who are going there, and it's becoming more and more common. People entering those dimensions, and it helps us to trust more. So thank you for sharing your own journeys into that. Okay, so Grau was raising her hand, and then we'll hear from Simona or Simone.
Hello, hi everyone. I have a very, very bad internet, so if I stop sounding, please, I don't know, let me know or go ahead with whatever is happening in the room. I'm really from a very bracketing space. I'm really glad. The past months, I've been having my own perspective, and I spent the last day of 2023 thought that I after dying, I wouldn't remember who I was. My first insight inside the year of 2024 was that they, or at least Mia, they don't teach us, they teach us about death, or we know what death is, but we don't know what it means to die in a way, or in a very experiential or practical way. What does it mean? Having this conversation with this deep fear and looking at this from many ways. I remembered when the morning 3, 4, 5 years ago, I don't remember the year anymore, but the morning I woke up and I lost my language. For 3 months, I wasn't able to speak properly, and I was there somewhere in the middle space. And the morning I woke up to that experience, I had like 30 minutes, and for 30 minutes, around 30 minutes, I had this flush of insane stories coming out of my mind. So I was looking at this endless movie, and I was the character in all of them, and I was dying in all of them, and I was in different ages. I was in different spaces, and like 15 minutes after that, went into aphasia. And actually, like, I don't think before this year or before this week, I had never seen that as a death. I was just looking at the beautiful, not beautiful, well, all parts are beautiful, but at the funny side of, oh, I had this unloading pack of dreams or realities or dimensionalities coming from my body. And that's with aphasia. And aphasia does feel like a reset, or losing the language or the ability to speak feels like this huge reset point, or this space inside within myself. And I think now I'm like, okay, I actually really died. I had a very intense death process in that year. And it is the different sensation now that I'm having, because I'm with my opened eyes, and I'm more conscious of what it means to lose one's language, or what actually maybe a little bit more conscious of what language is, and how reality is shaped, the linear motives that can coexist all at this darker side of it, this this space where there is just death, and looking at it. My point this beginning and ending of year was that, okay, I'm learning how to die, or I'm preparing to die through innerness, and it gave me hope that death is something that is just another dimension that we go to as. Yeah, so thank you everyone, and I've stopped here because maybe connection is pretty bad.
Thank you so much. Yeah, very illuminating. Simona or Simon or Simon?
Thanks, Pi. It's Simon. It's Simon.
Simon.
Yeah. Thank you for that lecture, first of all. It feels like talking about digestion, and it's going to take a while for that to really get digested. I think we'll probably listen to that a few times. But I wanted to share something that occurred to me as I was listening. Got a few kind of connections. One of this you mentioned about, as space holders, how we have to do this process in order to hold that process and facilitate that. And I was really aware of listening to you that the shifts that were happening in my system in response to, I guess, your information, your energy, And we did the training. We were totally new to the inner dance, and it was only 2 weeks ago with Siegfried and Sandra, and we went a bit gung-ho on some of your inner journey music straight after. I think we did 5 or 6 days in a row, listening to it once a day, different ones. And I was watching my system as I was listening to you, thinking, I'm having the same experience listening to you now that I had as I was listening to your music, even though it was The Doors, it was Mozart's 40th Symphony, it was people talking, sharing their experiences. So I thought that was just interesting how the subtlety of the creating that playlist, that experience, had your information as part of that. And I'm very excited about learning more about that. Anyway, I wanted to share that.
Yeah, this is so huge, Simon. Something we're studying is how form and content could actually be built from the same. So imagine if there was a cup, that would be like the vessel or the form, that which gives shape to the liquid, and then there would be the substance. I think when you study language and psychology, the studies are always separating that, okay, when we study form, we're studying the structure, and when we're studying the essence, we're studying the meaning. But could they actually be connected somehow? So we're interested in how the playlists actually hold the content. And so your feedback just like that hits me so much, because that's what we're trying to achieve. And I think that would heal the separation between the masculine and the feminine, between the East and the West. That somehow the cup and the liquid, they're all influencing each other. But technically they are coming from the same thing. It's like when I'm speaking, I can't be thinking. I can't be in a process of filtering. It has to be coming from somewhere else. And then when we're doing the same with the music, what the music is starting to achieve now that wasn't always possible is narrative, like holding a story, the many stories. Like, what if history itself had a history, so that the world might not have looked the same hundreds of years ago, centuries ago, or millennia ago? How did we perceive the world then dimensionally? So what the playlists are trying to achieve is to hold different histories, which will be different dimensions at the same time, and then to put that on top of each other in terms of layers. Then it's really not about music. It's more about um, how is consciousness structured, and how much is it able to hold? So coming from where Gra was speaking, describing some of these really deep experiences she had, when we go into those spaces, in the beginning, it would feel quite intense. And then when we familiarize ourselves with it, it almost becomes natural, so that we can hold the same amount of information. It's just not feeling as intense anymore. It's like we can hold more. So that's maybe why we would go through the process of laying down, of experimenting, and then learning to do it for others. So thank you for your sharing it. It's kind of feedback that it's something I really honor. It's something the energy itself wants to elaborate, like a kind of weaving between meaning and structure, because they're different. The substance and the vessel are not the same in many people's experiences. Like the body itself is a vessel, yet the body itself is meaning. So it's not just a container, it's actually vibration. And when we become vibration, that's what I want to say. When we become vibration, that's when there's no separation between the structure and the meaning. It becomes a space in the middle somehow, and we're becoming that. So thank you. Okay, anyone else would like to share or the question for the group? It sounds like this is already quite a lot even. Yeah, just give a space in case anyone would like to make a sound to share. Otherwise, we don't have to make this too long as well. This is the second call for the week, and people can watch the other call as well. It held a lot. It was quite different.
There's somebody with their hand raised by Sandrian.
Sandrian shared already. Now Jimmy's raising his hand.
Hi. What I was curious about is we talk a lot about subconscious and the states where we go into when we go in the process. But what I wanted to share is since I am experience have the experience of inner dance and also of facilitating. I sometimes have, you could say, really a conscious thing like, I feel energy, tension, pressure. And then even, you could say, without music or anything, I just lay down. I concentrate and focus on my rest. And then I also pressure my belly and keep moving it like small circles. And then it's like subconsciously, I know that conscious, it's in a mix. Then I can pressure it and I can, you could say, release some kind of blocks, even without music, where I go in the middle of subconscious and conscious, where I feel it coming, that even my body shakes like when you go through the inner dance. And also it makes me hold my breath and then blow it out and release the tension. But I'm conscious, I'm not in the inner dance, but it's I never had it before I did inner dance, but in some way it makes me conscious of my subconscious, what is in the body. And that was actually something that triggered me for quite some time, because when I feel it, I just do it. Sometimes it's 2 times in a week, sometimes it's 3 times that I just know I lay myself down. And then still I do the weekly or 2 weekly, the thing where I go fully, that's makes a difference. It's with the music, I go deep, and it's always a total other experience. It's then when I do it consciously, it has a link, but I don't know if you have heard similar stories or experiences like that.
Well, you're describing my own, Jimmy. I experienced it exactly like this. I don't really lay down to the music. What I have is a sensitivity, and a lot of that is in the body. So I would just need to find a certain state. It could be through movement or not, where a release would happen. And most often that would be experienced as loud electricity, like crackling through my body. So I think the only concept I would have for this is there's a system. There's a system that is innate in us. And when we discover the system, we become that system. So it really feels like you're becoming the system. You're discovering the system. No one tells you what to do. You already know it, which is, I think, what makes it even more amazing. And you never know where that's going to go. So I think there's a lot of affirmation, validation. There's a lot of, it's like a conversation, isn't it? With the nonverbal. Yeah. So my own experience reflects yours, actually. It doesn't, I don't even need to go to others. This is exactly how I feel it too. Thank you. Okay. Siegfried.
Hi, hello everybody. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm on the iPhone. Just wanted to say quickly hello and sorry for being so late. I was on the train, delayed by 3 hours from Germany to here now. I am back, so I missed most of it, but I will watch the recording. So just wanted to say a quick hello and happy to be here
Thank
with
you.
all of you.
Thank you.
I know
Yeah.
some of you.
Yeah, your name was mentioned 2 days ago and today quite often.
Glad.
Okay, thank you. Who else would like to share, if any? And then we can close soon if no one else has a hand raised. Yeah, I think this was already quite an amazing call. We can call it a night and a day. Thank you for sitting with the concepts. I think today, this is the first week, so we're opening up where we can sense the origins. Like where does where does it all begin? Like what is the starting point? And there were themes in the last call that was similar to today, which talked a lot about death. I think what made the first call interesting, and I hope you can get access to that. Just ask your facilitator for the link. We spoke a lot about what does it mean to not just experience, but to understand that this is a knowing, that the inner dance is a consciousness that holds an understanding of life, or reality, the self. So I found myself going back to how did I perceive the world? Because this energy thing, this movement, this explosion, this really was just a manifestation of how I understood the world. And I understood that the world is one. I understood that there was no separation. And I understood that everything was happening for a reason. And I just trusted. I just kept trusting. And in that trust, I saw everything happen. Meaning even before I had shared this to the world, it had already happened. It already spoke about how this was going to spread. This was going to resonate. This is going to, it's like any one day I could see everything was happening all at the same time. It was confusing, yet at the same time it was it I knew it. It took a little bit of insanity. I had to really break apart, break down, break through any normal way of seeing things. But underneath all those, there were just these really simple statements. Like it's all supposed to happen. It's all happened already. It's everything's connected. You can trust everything. Everyone is God, the universe, Goddess speaking one continuous conversation. And now we're here. It's like now we're here. So to receive this once again as a perception and not just a spiritual modality, not just as an energy process. But what is your understanding of the world and of yourself? What is your paradigm? How do you see lightly? How do you see the highest in a way that when you see the highest in another, you can bring about the highest. And then you would go into judgment. Like, what is judgment? Like, how are we not seeing things? And ironically, sometimes you can see by not seeing, like we were looking at it in the last call, where seeing for the ancient shamans meant to suspend momentarily the way we might be seeing things, so that the higher seeing, a real, true, authentic seeing is somehow not seeing, but like seeing from a much, much bigger space. So checking in with your perceptions, and everything you perceive will become an experience. Anything that you're experiencing, it's because you had perceived it, because somehow you believed in it, even if it wasn't happening yet. Somehow you preempted the experience by seeing it ahead. So that means taking a lot of responsibility, that this is all your own creation, your own imagination, your own dream space. So thank you for helping to open the week through the essence of the work, which is the process of really seeing, really being seen, really creating the conditions for a real seeing can happen. Yeah. So just bringing that into practice, no matter how that might show up, finding your own creativity, so that maybe there are aspects of this work that might birth itself through your growing understanding. There are ways this is being practiced now, but maybe there's more. And that's why we're going into the long study, in order that we can see this in a complete way, now that so much is known about this now. Like, how do we start from the beginning? There might be a design of culture and reality that births through our journey together. Okay, so if you can unmute yourself, and if you can help say good night, goodbye, hello in your language, your sound, and then we'll see you again next time.
Adios.
Noches.
Gracias.
Adiós.
Good night.
Bye, friends.
Ciao a tutti.
Bye.
Serata.
Bye.
Grazie.
Buenas noches.
Adios. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.